The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and abandonment. Marcus Reed stood motionless in the doorway, his hands wrapped in gauze, his world reduced to shadows and blurred shapes. He couldn't see her face clearly anymore, hadn't been able to for 3 weeks, but he could hear everything. The rustling of sheets. Her laughter, low and intimate, the same laughter that once promised forever. And then another voice. Male. Familiar in the worst possible way. "We should tell him soon," the man said. "Why? He can't even see us anymore." Her voice, Amber's voice, carried no guilt, only irritation. "He's useless now, Derek. Completely useless." Marcus's remaining vision blurred further, not from the accident, but from tears he refused to shed. 10 years. A decade of building a life with someone who had just confirmed what his heart had been whispering for weeks. He had loved a phantom. Marcus Alexander Reed *** was born on March 14, 1989, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to working-class parents who taught him that loyalty was currency and promises were sacred. His father had been a machinist, his mother a school librarian. They died in a winter car crash when Marcus was 23, leaving him an orphan who channeled grief into purpose. He became a structural engineer, designing bridges, literal connections between separated places, ironically poetic given where his life would lead. At 25, Marcus met Amber Nicole Crawford at a 4th of July barbecue in downtown Portland, Oregon, where he'd relocated for work. Born January 8, 1991, in Eugene, Oregon, Amber was sunshine personified, or so it seemed. Blonde, athletic, with a smile that could disarm suspicion and a laugh that filled rooms. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, traveling frequently, charming doctors and distributors with the same ease she'd charmed Marcus. "You're too serious," she told him that first night, her fingers tracing the worry lines on his forehead. "I'm going to teach you how to live." And for a while, she did. They hiked the Columbia River Gorge. They danced in their small apartment kitchen at 2 a.m. They talked about children, 2, maybe 3, and a house with a yard big enough for a dog. Marcus proposed after 4 years, and Amber said yes with tears in her eyes that he believed were joy. Her best friend was Derek Michael Sutton, born June 22, 1990, in Beaverton, Oregon. Derek was Marcus's opposite, effortlessly charismatic, financially reckless, emotionally shallow. He worked in tech sales, rode a motorcycle, and dated frequently but never seriously. Marcus had always found Derek exhausting but tolerated him because Amber insisted. "He's like a brother to me," she'd say. "We grew up together." What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Derek and Amber had been lovers in high school, a relationship that ended badly when Derek cheated. They'd supposedly moved past it, becoming platonic friends. But proximity is a dangerous thing, and history has a way of resurrecting itself when circumstances align. The 10-year engagement was Marcus's doing. He wanted financial stability before marriage, a house, savings, security. Amber had agreed, though her smile had tightened incrementally with each postponement. She never complained. She simply waited. And found other ways to feel seen. Portland, Oregon, 2014 to 2024. A decade of coffee shop mornings, Powell's bookstore afternoons, and evenings watching the city lights from their apartment balcony. Marcus designed bridges for the state transportation department. Amber climbed the pharmaceutical ladder, eventually managing a regional sales team. They moved 3 times, each apartment slightly bigger, each lease signed with, "just until we buy." Derek remained a constant. He attended their dinners, joined their hiking trips, crashed on their couch after breakups. Marcus noticed small things over the years, the way Amber's voice brightened when Derek called, how she always dressed slightly better when he'd be around, the inside jokes that predated Marcus's presence in her life. But he buried suspicion beneath trust. Doubting her felt like doubting himself. In 2019, Marcus's firm assigned him to design a pedestrian bridge across the Willamette River. The project consumed him, 18-hour days, weekend site visits, calculations that infiltrated his dreams. Amber began traveling more for work. Conference in San Diego. Training in Seattle. Client dinner in San Francisco. She'd return with gifts, lavender soap from Pike Place Market, chocolates from Ghirardelli Square. Evidence of presence. Proof of innocence. Derek, meanwhile, changed jobs frequently, each one promising more than it delivered. He borrowed money from Marcus twice, small amounts he never repaid. "Your family, man," Derek would say, clapping Marcus's shoulder. "I got you next time." There were nights when Marcus would wake to find Amber texting in the dark, her face illuminated by phone light, her expression unreadable. "Just work stuff," she'd murmur, setting the phone down. "Go back to sleep." The bridge project wrapped in August 2023. Marcus had planned to finally buy a house, to set a wedding date. Then came October 17, 2024, the day that redefined everything. It started with headaches. Persistent, throbbing things that no amount of ibuprofen could touch. Marcus dismissed them as stress until his vision began to blur at the edges, like someone had smeared Vaseline across his peripheral sight. He scheduled an appointment with an ophthalmologist, who ordered an MRI. The results came back on a Tuesday, a benign tumor pressing against his optic nerve. Operable, but risky. There was a 40% chance the surgery would cause permanent vision loss. A 30% chance it would solve nothing. A 30% chance of full recovery. Marcus told Amber that evening over takeout Chinese. She set down her chopsticks slowly. "What are the options?" "Surgery. Soon. Or eventually I'll go completely blind anyway." She nodded, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We'll get through this." But her behavior shifted. She became distant, her kisses perfunctory, her body angled away from him in bed. She stopped talking about the future and started mentioning the past, high school parties, college adventures, the time before Marcus. "Remember when we were young and stupid," she'd say to Derek during their group dinners, her hand lingering on his forearm. Marcus noticed Derek's responses changing too. Less brotherly ribbing, more lingering glances. The air between them thickened with something unspoken. The surgery was scheduled for November 3rd. The week before, Marcus found a receipt in Amber's purse while looking for aspirin, a hotel charge in downtown Portland, dated 3 weeks prior. She'd told him she was visiting her mother in Eugene that weekend. This must be a mistake, he told himself, tucking it back. There's an explanation. There always is. The question is whether you want to hear it. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Marcus woke in a recovery room with bandages wrapped around his head, Amber holding his hand. Or someone holding his hand. The voice was hers. "It's over, baby. You're okay." But he wasn't. The surgeon explained that there'd been complications, unexpected bleeding, additional nerve damage. His sight was reduced to about 20% functionality. With time and therapy, it might improve to 40%, maybe 50%. Or it might deteriorate further. The future was a question mark written in darkness. Amber drove him home. The apartment felt different, smelled different, sounded different. His remaining vision rendered the world in blurred shapes and muted colors. He couldn't drive. Couldn't work. Couldn't read. His entire identity, builder of connections, solver of problems, evaporated in the space between consciousness and blindness. "I'll take care of you," Amber promised. And for the first week, she did. She cooked, guided him through the apartment, read him news articles in a patient voice. But by week 2, her patience wore thin. She sighed when he knocked over water glasses. She snapped when he asked questions about medication schedules. She spent increasing time running errands that lasted hours. Derek visited often, supposedly to help. Marcus heard them in the kitchen, their voices lowered but not low enough. "This is temporary, right?" Amber asked. "He'll get better." The doctor said maybe. Derek's voice. "But maybe not. I can't do this forever, Derek. I'm 33. I've given him 10 years. So what are you saying?" A pause. Then, "I don't know. I miss feeling alive." Marcus sat frozen in the living room, his world narrowing to that kitchen conversation. He wanted to storm in, to demand explanations. But shame rooted him to the couch. Shame that his disability had become a burden, that his body's failure had revealed truths he'd been too comfortable to see. That night, he pretended to sleep while Amber lay beside him, her body rigid, her breathing shallow with something that wasn't grief. Marcus began paying attention with the intensity of a man who had nothing left but perception. He catalogued sounds. The particular creak of the floorboards when Amber tiptoed to the bathroom at 2 a.m., the ping of text messages she thought he couldn't hear, the way her voice lifted when Derek's name appeared on caller ID. He couldn't see the evidence, but he could feel it accumulating like sediment in his gut. One afternoon, while Amber was at the grocery store, Marcus used voice commands to access his laptop. He navigated to their shared cloud storage, to photos automatically backed up from her phone. His screen reader described the images in clinical detail. Photo taken November 10th. 2 people embracing. Indoor setting. Low lighting. November 10th. 5 days ago. The night she'd said she was at a work event. He had his phone read him her text messages. Yes, he knew her passcode, had known it for years. They'd shared everything. Or so he'd believed. The messages with Derek went back months. Innocuous at first, then gradually shifting. Derek *** thinking about you. Amber *** stop. Derek *** can't. Amber *** this is wrong. Derek *** didn't feel wrong in Seattle. Seattle. The pharmaceutical conference in July. 4 months before Marcus's surgery. 4 months of lies compressed into digital evidence. The most recent messages were worse. Derek *** when are you going to tell him? Amber *** I can't yet. He's vulnerable, Derek *** he's always going to be vulnerable now. You said you couldn't do this, Amber *** I know. Just give me time, Marcus closed the laptop, his hands trembling. The tumor had taken his sight, but betrayal had taken something deeper, the foundation upon which he'd built his understanding of the world. He needed proof. Not for confrontation, he already knew the truth. But for closure. For the moment when doubt would try to make him question his sanity. He hired a private investigator using money from a separate account Amber didn't know about. The investigator's report arrived via email 3 days later, read aloud by synthetic voice. Subject: Amber Crawford and Derek Sutton documented at Heathman Hotel on November 10th, 12th, and 15th, photographic evidence attached. Physical contact observed. Relationship confirmed as ongoing romantic affair beginning approximately July 2024. Marcus sat in the dark apartment, his world reduced to sounds and smells and the ache of confirmation. He'd spent 10 years with a woman who'd spent 4 months learning how to leave him. The Stoics taught that we cannot control external events, only our response to them. Marcus had read Epictetus in college, Marcus Aurelius during sleepless nights after his parents died. He'd underlined passages about emotional discipline, about accepting fate while refusing to be defined by it. Now, blind and betrayed, he returned to those principles not as philosophy but as survival. He stopped asking Amber questions. He stopped reaching for her hand. He began physical therapy with renewed intensity, memorizing the apartment layout, learning to navigate independently. He contacted his employer about modified work-from-home options, reviewing designs through specialized software, consulting on structural calculations. His mind, freed from the distraction of hope, became sharper. Clearer. He catalogued every sound, every shift in air pressure, every tells in Amber's voice when she lied about her whereabouts. He began recording conversations on his phone, voice-activated, capturing evidence not for legal purposes. They weren't married, nothing to litigate, but for the moment when she would try to gaslight him, to make him doubt his perception. A blind man sees more clearly, he realized, because he's forced to pay attention. He started exercising. Push-ups, sit-ups, weights he counted by touch. His body had betrayed him with the tumor, he would reclaim it through discipline. He ate with precision, tracking protein and nutrients. He meditated, sitting in the silent apartment, accepting the darkness not as limitation but as reality to be navigated. The anger remained, but he transformed it into something colder. Justice, he learned, requires patience. Revenge is hot and satisfying, justice is methodical and permanent. He gave Amber rope. Let her think him helpless. Let her believe his blindness meant emotional blindness too. And he waited for the moment when she would reveal herself completely. December arrived with Portland rain, constant, relentless, turning the city into a symphony of water against windows. Marcus sat in the apartment living room, listening to Amber prepare for another work dinner. Her heels clicked against hardwood. Perfume, expensive, new, hung in the air. "I'll be home late," she said, her voice distant. "Don't wait up." "I'll be here," Marcus replied. He always was. The door closed. Silence settled. And Marcus picked up his phone. The private investigator had given him Derek's schedule. Tonight, Derek's location would match the restaurant Amber had mentioned. They'd be together, believing Marcus none the wiser. Marcus called an Uber using voice commands, navigating by memory to the building's entrance. The driver asked no questions. Rain pelted the windshield as they drove through downtown Portland, streetlights creating halos in Marcus's limited vision. The restaurant was upscale, he could tell from the hush of voices, the clink of expensive glassware. The hostess approached. "I'm looking for a woman," Marcus said softly. "Blonde, about 5'7". She would have arrived in the last 20 minutes, probably with a man. The hostess hesitated. "Sir, It's my fiancée," Marcus said, his voice empty of emotion. "And I'm blind, as you can see. I just need to know if she's here." Pity is a powerful tool. "Table 14, the hostess whispered. "By the window." Marcus nodded. "Can you guide me there?" Quietly. She did, her hand on his elbow, navigating between tables. Marcus's world narrowed to footsteps and voices and the scent of Amber's perfume growing stronger. And then he heard them, their laughter, intimate and unguarded. Derek's voice, "When are you going to actually leave him?" Amber's response, "Soon. I promise. I just need him to be stable first. Then I'll." "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the conversation like a blade. Silence. Absolute and terrible. "Marcus?" Amber's voice, shocked, cracking. He stood beside their table, his face expressionless, his sightless eyes pointed approximately toward where he estimated Derek sat. "Hello, Amber." "Derek." He paused. "I believe we have some things to discuss." "Marcus, what are you, how did you?" Amber's chair scraped backward. "Doing here?" Marcus finished. "Simple. I followed you. Well, had someone drive me. Turns out being blind doesn't mean being stupid." Derek stood. "Man, look, this isn't." "Don't." Marcus's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of collapsed bridges. "Don't insult me by pretending this is anything other than exactly what it looks like." Amber's breathing quickened. We should talk about this at home. Why? So you can lie more effectively. So you can cry and tell me I'm misunderstanding. Marcus tilted his head. I know about Seattle. July conference. I know about the Heathman Hotel, November 10th, 12th, 15th. I know about every text message where you planned how to leave a blind man without looking like the villain. The restaurant had gone silent. Marcus could feel the weight of stares, the held breath of eavesdroppers. I gave you 10 years, Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. 10 years of loyalty, patience, building toward a future you promised you wanted. And the moment I became inconvenient, the moment I needed you most, you ran to him. That's not fair, Amber whispered. You don't understand what it's been like. What it's been like. Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of humor. I lost my sight. You lost your convenience. These are not equivalent hardships. Derek cleared his throat. Marcus, we didn't plan for this to happen. It just happened. Marcus turned toward Derek's voice. In July. 4 months before my surgery. That's quite the coincidence. Silence confirmed what words would have denied. I loved you, Marcus said to Amber, and for the first time, his voice cracked. I designed a life around you. Every bridge I built was practice for building us. And you, he stopped, collecting himself. You were planning your exit before the diagnosis gave you an excuse. Marcus, please, Amber reached for his hand. He pulled away. No. You don't get to touch me anymore. You don't get to comfort the pain you caused. He straightened. I'm leaving. The apartment lease is in my name. You have 1 week to move out. After that, your belongings go to the curb. You can't just. I can. And I am. Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket. Restraining order. Already filed. Come near me, and you'll answer to the police. Congratulations, Amber. You're free. Exactly like you wanted. He turned, his movements careful but deliberate, and walked toward the exit. The hostess appeared, guiding him gently. Behind him, Amber's voice rose, Marcus, wait. You're being unreasonable. I never. But he was already gone, stepping into rain that washed over his face like baptism, cleansing him of illusions he'd carried too long. Amber moved out within 3 days. Marcus knew because Derek struck idle downstairs for hours, loading boxes. She left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter, along with a letter Marcus had his phone's camera read aloud. Marcus, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. But you have to understand, I couldn't live my life waiting anymore. I hope someday you'll forgive me. You deserved better than what I gave you. Asterisk. The non-apology confirmed everything. His co-workers learned the story through rumor and truth alike. Some expressed sympathy. Others went quiet, uncomfortable with the messiness of betrayal. Marcus returned to work remotely, his designs translated through specialized software, his consultations conducted via video calls where he no longer had to see reactions to his scars. Amber and Derek became official within weeks. Marcus knew because mutual friends, choosing sides, as people do, mentioned it with the apologetic tone reserved for delivering bad news about people who don't deserve better. The legal system offered no satisfaction. No marriage meant no divorce, no assets to divide. The emotional wreckage belonged to Marcus alone. But wreckage can be rebuilt. Marcus started attending a support group for the visually impaired. He met others navigating similar darkness, some from birth, others from accidents, disease, betrayal of body in forms both mundane and tragic. They shared strategies and stories. They laughed at jokes only people in darkness could understand. He adopted a dog, a golden retriever named Atlas, trained to guide and accompany. Atlas didn't care that Marcus couldn't see. Atlas cared that Marcus fed him, walked him, spoke to him in the quiet evenings when memory became too heavy. 6 months after the restaurant confrontation, Marcus's vision stabilized at 35% functionality. Not enough to drive, not enough to read easily, but enough to see shapes, faces at close range, sunlight filtering through windows. Enough to recognize he'd regained more sight than he'd lost. Marcus stood on the pedestrian bridge he'd designed, the one that had consumed his life during the year Amber had begun her betrayal. Rain fell lightly, and the Willamette River churned below, gray-green and eternal. He could see the bridge now, not clearly, but enough. The cables he'd calculated, the deck he'd specified, the railings designed to keep people safe as they crossed from one shore to another. Bridges connect, he thought. But they also allow departure. The Stoics had been right. He couldn't control Amber's choices, Derek's weakness, the tumor that had stolen his sight. He could only control his response, and he'd chosen to respond with dignity instead of destruction, with rebuilding instead of collapse. He thought about calling her sometimes, late at night when loneliness pressed hardest. He wondered if she ever thought about him, if Derek had proven as faithful to her as he'd been faithless to Marcus. But those questions belonged to a version of himself that no longer existed. The man who'd trusted blindly was gone. The man who'd emerged from darkness saw the world with brutal, beautiful clarity. He'd lost his sight. He'd lost his fiancée. He'd lost a decade. But he'd found something more valuable, the knowledge that he could survive the unsurvivable, that he could walk through fire and emerge not unburned but unbroken. Atlas pressed against his leg, warm and solid. Marcus placed his hand on the dog's head and smiled, a real smile, not performed for anyone's comfort. "Come on, boy," he said. "Let's go home." What would you have done in Marcus's position? When the person you've built your entire life around betrays you at your most vulnerable moment, how do you respond? Do you fight? Forgive? Walk away with nothing but dignity? And what about Amber? Was she a villain, or simply a person who made terrible choices when faced with a future she hadn't signed up for? Does context excuse betrayal, or does loyalty transcend circumstance? If you've experienced betrayal, or witnessed someone navigating it with grace or destruction, share your story in the comments. How did they rebuild? What did they learn about trust, about themselves, about the nature of promises made and broken? Hit subscribe if this story made you feel something. Hit like if you believe dignity matters more than revenge. And share this if you know someone who needs to hear that surviving betrayal doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're becoming bulletproof, ***. Drop a comment, would you have confronted them publicly or handled it differently? The conversation continues below.